My name is Alex Miller, and I used to live in a sprawling, slightly run-down townhouse near the university campus. There were 15 of us crammed in there, a motley crew of students, each trying to navigate adulthood, late-night study sessions, and the eternal mystery of who kept leaving the communal fridge door ajar. I was 20 years old, a third-year journalism major, and my main occupation outside of classes was trying to perfect my chicken stir-fry recipe. I poured my heart into that stir-fry, a symphony of crisp vegetables, tender chicken, and a sauce. That was a secret blend of soy, ginger, and just a hint of sesame oil. My kitchen, or at least my small corner of it in the shared space, was my sanctuary. I loved to cook, to experiment, to create something delicious out of simple ingredients. Life in the townhouse was a constant hum of activity. Someone was always studying in the living room, another group was playing video games in the den, and the kitchen was a revolving door of hungry students. My best friend Maya lived just down the hall from me. She was a pre-med student, sharp as a tack, with a quick wit and a no-nonsense attitude that I deeply admired. We'd often grab coffee together before our morning classes, dissecting everything, from the latest campus gossip to the existential dread of impending exams. Then there was Ben, a laid-back computer science major who was almost always found with headphones on, coding away in his room. He was a quiet guy, but when he did speak, it was usually something insightful or hilariously sarcastic. They were my anchors in the chaos of dorm life. The main antagonist in this story, though I didn't know it at the time, was Darren. Darren was another one of our townhouse residents, a finance major who always seemed to carry an air of self-importance. Despite contributing very little to the household chores, he was the kind of guy who would borrow your notes without asking, never replaced the toilet paper roll, and somehow managed to avoid cleaning up after himself in the kitchen, leaving a trail of crumbs and sticky spills. He had a smug smirk that was his default expression, and he rarely made eye contact, preferring to gaze vaguely over your shoulder as if something more interesting was always happening just beyond you. Our relationship was pretty much non-existent, a series of polite nods in the hallway and the occasional forced smile. I didn't really think much of him, just another face in the crowd of dorm mates. My daily life revolved around classes, writing for the campus newspaper, and my culinary adventures. I had a pretty set routine: up early, a quick breakfast, then off to morning lectures. After that, I'd usually head back to the townhouse for lunch, a quick bite, and then back out for more classes or to the library to work on my articles. Evenings were for group study, hanging out with Maya and Ben, or, if I was feeling ambitious, tackling a new recipe. The kitchen was my happy place. I found a certain rhythm in chopping vegetables, the sizzle of oil in the pan, the aroma of spices filling the air. It was a way to unwind, to express myself. It was early October when the first tiny cracks in my peaceful culinary world began to appear. Nothing major at first. I'd make a big batch of oatmeal for breakfast, expecting it to last me a few days, and then find the container suspiciously lighter the next morning. I'd chalk it up to my own forgetfulness, thinking, oh, I must have eaten more than I remember. Or I'd buy a new carton of my favorite almond milk, only to find it nearly empty just a day later. I figured I was just going through things faster than I thought, or maybe I was absent-mindedly pouring larger servings. It was easy to dismiss these little disappearances. We were 15 people in one house. After all, things got used up, things disappeared. It was just dorm life. Tuesday, I remember it vividly. I had a particularly grueling morning. 3 back-to-back lectures, culminating in a 2-hour seminar on investigative journalism that felt less like a class and more like an interrogation. My brain felt fried, and my stomach was rumbling a symphony of protest. All I could think about was the beautiful chicken stir-fry I had painstakingly prepared the night before. I had made a massive quantity, enough for at least 3 lunches, anticipating a busy week. It was perfectly packed in a large glass container, waiting patiently in the fridge. Thought of it, with its tender chicken, vibrant broccoli florets, and that subtly spicy, savory sauce, was the only thing that got me through those last 20 minutes of the seminar. I practically floated through the living room, already savoring the first bite. My stomach tightened in anticipation. I pushed open the kitchen door, strode to the fridge, and pulled open the handle. My hand reached for the usual spot where the large glass container should have been. My fingers met nothing but cold air. I blinked, confused. I scanned the shelves, my brow furrowing. Nothing. I pulled out every container, peered behind milk jugs and Tupperware, but my stir-fry was undeniably completely gone. A wave of confusion washed over me, quickly followed by a dull throb of disappointment. I knew I had made it. I remembered the exact moment I had put it in the fridge. I was sure. I closed the fridge door slowly, a bewildered expression on my face. A few of the other dorm mates were in the living room, lounging on the worn couches, scrolling on their phones. They looked up as I walked in, still looking baffled. "What's up, Alex?" asked Liam, a lanky engineering student, noticing my lost expression. "My chicken stir-fry," I started, my voice tinged with disbelief. "I could have sworn I made a whole frying pan full of it last night, and it's just gone from the fridge." A ripple of knowing laughter spread through the group. It wasn't malicious laughter, more of a weary, resigned amusement. My confusion deepened. "Darren strikes again," muttered Chloe, rolling her eyes. My head snapped towards her. "Darren? What do you mean, Darren?" Liam sighed. "Apparently, for the last month or so, Darren has made it a habit of eating other people's food. He just helps himself. Whenever someone confronts him, he just denies it, or says he thought it was fair game because it was in the communal fridge. But we're all positive it's him. It's always when he's been home alone or the last one to get to the fridge." A cold dread began to creep through me, mixing with a simmering anger. So those missing oatmeal portions, the vanishing almond milk, the mysteriously empty bag of tortilla chips. It wasn't me being forgetful. It was Darren. A quiet fury started to build within me. It wasn't just the food. It was the brazen disregard, the disrespect, the absolute nerve of it. "How have I only noticed this now?" I asked, feeling a bit foolish. "It's already October." Chloe shrugged. "You're usually pretty good about keeping track of your stuff. Most of us caught on faster. We figured you just hadn't had anything big disappear yet." I shook my head. "No, I've noticed things missing. But I figured I ate them and forgot, or that someone else needed it. I didn't think anyone would just straight up steal food." The injustice of it festered. It wasn't just about the stir-fry, delicious as it was. It was the principle. It was the invasion of my space, the theft of my effort, the audacity of someone else consuming something I had made with care and effort without so much as a thought. My pride as a cook, my sense of personal boundaries felt violated. The quiet hum of anger began to grow into a low roar. That evening, a quiet fire ignited within me. Darren was out at his evening classes, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing. In my mind, the others in the townhouse were busy with their own lives, largely oblivious to my specific simmering rage. I went to the grocery store, not for ingredients for another meal, but for weapons. I marched down the spice aisle with a grim determination. Ghost peppers, Scotch bonnet peppers, scorpion peppers, and the reigning champion of heat, Carolina Reaper peppers. I picked up a few extra red bell peppers and some chicken just to make it look innocent. My mind was racing, a plan forming. I returned to the kitchen, a predatory gleam in my eye. I started chopping, mincing, and dicing with a focused intensity. My stir-fry recipe was already spicy. I loved a good kick, but this was going to be an inferno. I added the usual aromatics, garlic and ginger, but then, with a mischievous grin, I began to unleash the beast. The ghost peppers went in first, their innocent-looking red skins belying the volcanic fury within. Then the Scotch bonnets, their fruity aroma masking a brutal heat, the scorpion peppers notorious for their searing sting. And finally, the Carolina Reapers, the grand masters of capsaicin, just a few tiny slivers, handled with extreme caution. I even found a special kind of chili powder I had bought on a whim a while ago, specifically for extreme spice challenges, and added a generous amount. I cooked it all down, the fumes from the peppers making my eyes water slightly, a triumphant smile on my face. The aroma was deceptive. It smelled like a regular stir-fry, maybe a little more intense, but nothing to warn the unsuspecting victim. I poured the finished product into the same large glass container, feeling a thrill of anticipation. I knew I could handle a lot of spice, but even for me, this was pushing the limits. I planned to eat it on Friday, when I had no classes or social obligations for the weekend, knowing full well I would probably be paying for it on Saturday. It was a personal challenge, a test of my own spice tolerance, and now, a weapon. I placed it carefully in the fridge, right where my previous innocent stir-fry had been. I went to bed that night with a sense of grim satisfaction, the spicy aroma still lingering faintly in my nose. The next morning, I woke up, got ready for my classes, and honestly, completely forgot about the spicy stir-fry waiting in the fridge. My mind was on my upcoming midterm. On the latest campus news story I was reporting on, the stir-fry was a distant memory, a task completed and set aside. I had a long morning of classes again, a back-to-back schedule that kept me focused and busy. When the final bell rang, my stomach once again was a demanding void. I headed back to the townhouse, my thoughts already drifting towards lunch. I walked through the living room, making a mental note of who was around, and headed towards the kitchen. Just as I was about to enter, the kitchen door swung open and Darren walked out. His face was a sight to behold. It wasn't just a little red or flushed from exertion. No, by red, I mean the kind of red that screams distress. It was the vibrant, undeniable red of the Canadian maple leaf flag, or the bold red stripes on the American flag. His entire face was a uniform, alarming crimson, as if he had just spent an hour vigorously scrubbing it with a wire brush. His eyes were watering profusely, and his nose, equally red, was running like a faucet. He looked like he had been crying, his eyes out, or perhaps had just emerged from a smoke-filled room. There were streaks on his cheeks, clear paths where tears had washed away the redness, only for them to be immediately replaced. His breathing was short and shallow, almost a series of desperate gasps. He clutched his stomach with one hand, his throat with the other. Without missing a beat, a flash of memory went off in my head. The ghost peppers, the Scotch bonnets, the scorpion peppers, the Carolina Reapers, my spicy stir-fry. My eyes widened slightly in recognition, and then a slow, unstoppable smile spread across my face. Oh, this was glorious. This was more perfect than I could have ever imagined. I looked at him, my expression one of genuine, albeit incredibly ironic, innocence. I genuinely loved my cooking, even my experimental tongue-incinerating creations. So, I asked, my voice as mild and unassuming as I could make it, "Hey Darren, did you like my stir?" He froze, his red eyes, still streaming tears, snapped to mine. The expression on his face was not one of gratitude or even a normal surprise. It was a raw, unfiltered death stare, a look of pure, unadulterated fury mixed with a desperate burning agony. He looked like he wanted to evaporate me with his gaze alone. The intensity of his glare, combined with his vivid crimson face, was so utterly comical that I couldn't help it. A giggle escaped me, then another and another, until I was laughing so hard I had to clutch my own stomach, tears streaming down my face from the sheer hilarity of the situation. My booming laughter echoed through the townhouse. It was loud enough that others started to emerge from their rooms, drawn by the unusual commotion. Liam and Chloe poked their heads out, then Maya and Ben. They took one look at Darren's beet-red face, then at my convulsing form, and their expressions shifted, from curiosity to confusion, then to dawning comprehension. "What's going on?" Liam asked, trying to stifle a grin as he took in Darren's suffering. Still gasping for breath between bursts of laughter, I managed to explain, "My stir-fry, the one he ate yesterday. I made a new batch last night, but one added a few extra ingredients," pointing out Darren's Rudolph-like nose and the extraordinary shade of red on his face. More doormates gathered. Each new person who came down asked what was up, and each time I happily repeated the tale. The laughter grew, a chorus of mirth filling the living room. Darren, meanwhile, stood there, a statue of incandescent misery, too choked by tears and likely internal fire to even manage a coherent response. He just glared, occasionally whimpering before finally stumbling away, presumably to find some milk or ice cream to quell the inferno in his mouth. It turned out my act of culinary revenge had a much larger impact than I had anticipated. For weeks, a few of the more exasperated dorm mates, his consistent freeloading, his refusal to do his share of cleaning, and his general lack of consideration had finally pushed them to their breaking point. They had complained to the housing office, but without concrete proof, it was difficult to make a case against him. His denials, though flimsy, were enough to keep him in the clear. My visual evidence, his face being as red as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer after a particularly strenuous flight, was apparently all the proof they needed. The collective testimony of 15 students, all agreeing that Darren had a habit of stealing food, combined with the undeniable physical manifestation of his guilt on his face, was irrefutable. It was a smoking gun, a spicy, fiery smoking gun. A day later, an email circulated from the housing office. Darren was being asked to move out by the end of the week due to multiple complaints about shared living space violations. There was a collective sigh of relief throughout the townhouse. Darren, for his part, remained a sullen, red-faced presence for the next few days, avoiding eye contact with everyone. On the day he was moving out, I saw him struggling with a large box by the front door. His face was still a bit pinkish, a lingering testament to his spicy ordeal. As he bent down to pick up another box, I walked over, a wide, genuine smile on my face. I couldn't resist. "Hey, Darren," I said, my voice light and cheerful. "Just wanted to ask one last time." He didn't look at me. He just picked up the box, his jaw clenched, and walked out the door, ignoring me completely. I just laughed, a genuine, hearty laugh that felt incredibly satisfying. It wasn't just about the food anymore. It was about standing up for myself, about a small act of justice in a world that often felt unfair. And it tasted, if I was being honest, sweeter than any stir-fry I had ever made. The townhouse felt lighter, freer, a communal sigh of relief, echoing through its halls. Life went on, but now everyone's food was safe, and the mystery of the missing groceries was finally solved. And I, Alex Miller, continued to perfect my recipes, perhaps with a little less spice for the general public, but always ready for an unexpected culinary challenge.